Welcome back, everybody. So, first of all, what I would like to do is actually go through my freedom transformation formula. So give you an understanding what it is that I do in terms of how I help my clients. Now, predominantly, my clients are female executives, leaders and entrepreneurs, but we do have many men that do reach out and say that they would actually like a one-to-one. So you don't have to be walking like a woman to be in here if you don't want to be. If you feel like you want to, that's fine. Anyway, so my freedom transformation form, the aim is that you're helping them to be able to bounce back from burnout, but without compromising their dreams or career. Because some people think that they have to change their behaviour in order to be successful, and that just isn't the case. So the first key stage is reset. And what do I mean by reset? It's been able to mentally and physically reset where you are in relation to how you're feeling on a stress level. Now, what I would like to say to you is in the books, it does actually go through the pages. So if you want to write on the books that are in front of you, that's fine, just as an addition to it. Save you scribbling on other pieces of paper. So, now, reset. The reason why we need to, is that moving forward? Yeah, the reason why we need to understand what our stress levels are is because it can be hugely impacting to both our mental and our physical health. And it can be hugely damaging. And now the reason why it can be hugely damaging is that it can impact your sleep. And your sleep is one of the most fundamental things, and it's the most least spoken about thing as well. We can last longer without food and drink than we can without sleep before it impacts our mental well-being, our internal functions, and that's why it has such a detrimental effect on you. And then, of course, it has an impact on things like your joints, inflammation, all those kind of things that stop you being able to move around. Gives you things like brain fog, memory loss. And then, of course, it impacts your weight. And that can be going up or down in weight. And then, of course, the self-sabotage. Because we get frustrated, because we get anxious, we then start self-sabotaging by eating junk food, predominantly processed foods, carbs and all those kind of things, which then also has an impact on your sleep. Because when you're eating poor food, when you're not sleeping well, it has an impact on your, it prevents you from stopping yourself from being hungry. So it's still telling you you want more food. But then when you want more food, you go for the easy options. So you start eating the junk food. And then, of course, other things like drinking alcohol and taking drugs. Not you, of course. But when my clients use a stress-free risk resolution, it not only helps them to establish where they are, been able to recognise what their stress levels are. It helps them to understand their patterns of behaviour. And because of that, when they're able to understand themselves, you know the old saying is know thyself? Because when you know thyself, then you're able to start putting things in place. Now, I will be talking about this on a deeper level in a moment, but this is where we're covering off. But the important thing is that when you start reducing your stress levels, you're able to sleep better. It also helps you to become more centred, more balanced, more relaxed. As I said, the noise stops inside your head. And then, of course, you start performing better. And that's whether it's on a business level or on a personal level. And it also helps with our relationships because we are actually responding on a much better level. We're not reacting. We're not the emotional monkey that kicks in, which we'll cover off in a bit more detail. And then the next stage is re-energise. And the thing is why is re-energising so important? When we re-inject vitality and energy into our lives, it just gives us such a lift and it helps support the recuperation process because it's fantastic recognising what our stress levels are and what our key indicators are. But you need other tools and strategies to be able to complement that and be able to strengthen what it is that you're doing. And the problem I see is that particularly, you know, when they're professionals, they work late at night. They're never stopping. They think that it's okay to keep on doing just that another 5 minutes, just that another 5 minutes. And they think because of doing that, that their actual performance is going to be good. And the reality is that when you start working those extra hours, you're actually performing at a much lower level. So it means your focus isn't there. And when you're not focusing, then obviously it's going to take you that much longer to achieve what you need to do. Oh, and then of course, juggling everything, taking on more and more work, you know, volunteering for everything, not switching off from technology, not stepping away from people. And I know people are really positive to have around you, but it's also nice just to step away, just have some time out for yourself. Not taking well-needed holidays and breaks. Recreate. That's what recreation is. Because when you break it down, recreation is recreate. And when you recreate, then it gives you that space to have more energy for yourself. In some companies, we all know, it's like wearing a badge of honour. You know, a medal of honour because you're the last one sitting there. And I'm sure there's people in your lives. I mean, have you been in situations where you've got persons sitting there at the desk going, oh, I'll wait until Paul leaves, because if I leave before him, they'll judge me for that. And then there's the senior leader that thinks that I'm so bloody important that I need to stay until 10 o'clock at night. And of course, Paul's still sitting there waiting for you to leave. And the reality is that you're sitting there thinking, well, I'll wait until Paul leaves because then I won't be judged. So you're both doing exactly the same thing, which is crazy, isn't it? And the problem with that is it affects your mental health. It affects your performance. You can't think, you can't concentrate. You've got all that noise going around and round and round in your head. And then unfortunately, it affects your longevity of life, which is tough love. But the fact is that so many people, that they get to that stage in their lives where they haven't looked on after themselves. They haven't re-energised, taken time out for themselves. That it gets to this stage. For so many different reasons, so many different health issues. And yet, my GEMS Wellbeing journey, it helps my clients to be able to become more centred, doing things like yoga, learning gratitude. We spoke about it yesterday, the power of learning gratitude. Because when you wake up in that morning, it's like you're grateful, just, I'm here, I'm alive, I'm standing here. I've got a tap that I can turn on water and drink out of it. When you listen to Lara's Lara's story. So, you know, what she had to actually contend with, what we've had in comparison to Lara's lives. How grateful we are. And that creates that positivity, that energy, and the intention, being present in a room, switching off the technology, as we were saying, me actually listening, engaging with you. How did you feel? Here's a question. When you had someone sitting there listening to you for 5 minutes, just focusing on you as an individual, how did that make you feel? And just
makes you feel seen.
Yeah.
Seen and heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. It makes you feel seen and heard. You feel comfortable and that somebody's listening to what you're saying. And they're not just thinking about what they're going to do next.
Mm. Yeah. Planning the next sentence.
Correct.
So, and then, more importantly, and we was doing this again with yourself yesterday, Vanessa. It's great because she's actually practicing a lot of the stuff that I'm teaching. So I can say, well, you know what Vanessa shared yesterday? This is what I'm teaching. So, but the important thing is that taking time out to actually breathe. And one of the things that I would encourage you is that even if it is 2 to 3 minutes, stepping away from your desk, stepping away from what it is that you're doing. Go and sit outside, particularly if it's sunny, not rainy. But I mean, arguably, Dean thinks I'm quite crazy because in the morning I actually like to stand outside in a towel in the sunlight, you know. So, but I'll explain the reasons for that in a moment. But when you take that time out just to sit and breathe, and as you say, here, not here, regurgitating all the crap, because as you say, if you're breathing into your chest, it starts setting off all of your parasympathetic, whatever it is. So
Parasympathetic nervous system.
thank you. And when it does that, that's when it then creates that levels of anxiety and stress. But when you're breathing into here, it does give you that balanced place. So that's where we're taking it from. And then, of course, learning self-love, having self-care, taking time out for you to re-energise. Then the next one is reflect. Now, what do I mean by reflect? It's otherwise known as introspection, and that's your ability to be able to look back into the past, understand the connections between behaviours, your decisions that you've made. We've already mentioned with Laura that your beliefs that you've got that have been programmed into you. And they have been programmed into you. Not intentionally. Our parents do say and do things without realising the words that they say can have a damaging effect. The things we see can impact it, the things we see on the news. The beliefs that people have that they pass down to you. And that should be seen and not heard. Shh, be quiet. All of those kind of things. So those connections. Now, does anybody familiar? Raise your hand if you're familiar with Joe Dispenza. Yeah. So one of the things that Joe Dispenza, his is very much focused on things around energy. And we are over, I mean, I believe it, and obviously it's down to individuals, about energy, that we're all connected. And in this room, we're all connected. I don't know if you've ever had a feeling when you've walked into the room, you feel really, really energised and you think, yep, these are my tribe. I want to be around these people. And there are other times you walk in a room and you're like, back out, back out, back out, those kind of things. So, that, you know, that's because we have that connection. We can feel it. We have that empathy in the room. Now, what Joe Dispenza says is that by the time we're 35 years old, we've wired ourselves in a way. And we've created a personality. Now, the thing is, unless we rewire ourselves, then nothing changes. And we have to change our personality to change the status quo. If you get up doing the same thing every single day, doing the same job, talking to the same people, the same life, not doing anything, then nothing will change. And yet when you actually start making changes to your life, change your personality, make small steps of changes, improvements, reading books, you know, learning about things, going to new locations, finding new people, finding new tribes, you learn so much from each other. And the problem is, let's try get that one back. If anybody's heard the saying from Einstein, definition of madness, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, which is crazy. And obviously, as Joe Dispenza is saying, is that when you do change your patterns of behaviour and you do learn more about, you know, meet more people and all those kind of things, then as a result of that, it then means that you actually start making improvements in your life. And as good old Dumbledore, I love using some of his phrases, they're great. So Dumbledore, one of his phrases that he says is it's not the abilities that show who we are. It's the choices that we make in life. Because when we make the wrong choices, as I've mentioned, is that we start questioning our behaviours, the decisions that we've made, the things that we've done and why we've done them. As you see, me and you, I know we've got some very similar experiences, is that imposter appears. That feeling that people would judge me. That, that imposter feel. And the thing is when we have those beliefs that are pushing us down, it then has this spiraling effect where we then start getting lower and lower and lower, and it's a lot harder coming up when you've gone all the way down. So, and yet, with my empowering growth generator, it helps my clients to be able to see their potential. Now, before I explain what this actually does, and helps them to learn how to re-energise and all those kinds of things, so it helps them to reflect back in the past, understand what went well, what didn't go so well, when did things change, why they changed, and what you can implement to actually take you to a whole new level. So I'd like to ask a question. So I'm going to ask it, what do you see when you see this image?
Okay, me?
Yeah. No.
So, well, I would see a swan and reflection underneath. It's sort of inverted underneath. It's all darker underneath. There's that light, lovely light. The side, there's that sort of darker upside down reflection underneath.
How does it make you feel?
How does it make me feel? There's a swan looking towards the sun, so it makes me feel so there is sunlight and blue sky to go towards, and then there's this sort of inverted shadow underneath, and it's almost like it's sort of joined. So, I mean, that bird hasn't taken off, so it looks as though it might want to, but I feel as though maybe it's stuck a little bit to what's underneath. Maybe that's something.
Do you have a...
I want to know, Philippe is just saying that it makes him feel like it's a reflection of what the past was, what the present is, and what the future is going to become.
Fantastic, lovely, yeah, lovely. And what about yourself, Vanessa? What do you see with this?
It's almost like, because it's like the bird is getting ready for takeoff. The bird is getting ready for takeoff, and it's like majestic and getting ready. So I see like a majestic bird getting ready for greatness.
Yeah. Potential. Anybody else? So for me, when I first saw this image, it showed potential, opportunity, growth, potentiality. You know, it just, for me, it evokes everything like that. And whenever I see it, it makes me smile. It makes me feel really good inside. Bizarrely, and I think I was talking to you about this, Vanessa, I ran a workshop the other day. And I asked everybody around the room, and someone said, feel powerful and strong and potential. And one of the ladies in the room, she said, all I see is bloody birds. And she said, I hate them. Now, the reason why I'm telling you that story is because everybody sees different things. Everybody feels different things. So, you know, you can't make assumptions. Just because that's what I see is potentiality and growth and all those things and opportunity, it doesn't mean to say that that's what they see too. And that's where we need to make sure that we're coming from compassion towards another individual, because we need to understand it from their perspective. So what's gone on in their lives? Lara, what's gone in her life? If you saw Lara as she is now, you'd have never imagined that was her past. You'd have this assumption, oh, she looks fantastic, she's probably had it easy, she's done wonderful things in her life and she's had it great and all that kind of stuff. So people are judging. And when they judge you, that then impacts your beliefs even further, and then it then impacts you more. But the important thing is that, you know what? It doesn't matter what they think. That's actually their problem. The only thing you need to worry about is how you feel about yourself. And as she turned around and said, it's learning that self-love, that self-belief, that self-compassion. But also, be compassionate about somebody else, because you don't know what's driving their thoughts for that particular day. Is that something you would agree with? Yes or no? Yeah. And then my final one, which is obviously my favourite, is rediscover. And as I've already said, is that rediscover is what gives you passion, what gives you purpose, what gives you joy, that potentiality. Because the problem is most of the people that I work with, female executives, leaders, founders, entrepreneurs, they don't know what their why is. Too focused on the what and the how, and charging on forward like Groundhog Day. And because they're doing that, they then become frustrated. And it means that their personal and their professional lives get out of balance because their values, their beliefs, their why is not connected with themselves. And that's why they're often on the rat race and they're sort of running at like 1,000 miles an hour and not actually doing what they love, not concentrating on what they love. And I mean, it's after all, when you have no why, you've got no direction in life. It's rather like you booking a holiday somewhere and you've got no destination in mind. You take off, you start flying around and flying around, and the fuel runs out and you land. Well, you could land in a war zone. Well, I don't know about you, but I really don't want to go on holiday in a war zone. And as I say, the problem with that is that you end up like Groundhog Day. Oh, it's Monday morning, here we go, get up, same old thing, have a cup of coffee, go to work, do the same thing, over and over again, like lemons. Bored out of your flaming skull. So you're sat, how many of you have sat in a room like that and gone, yeah, literally, I've sometimes felt like, kill me now, I can't listen to this anymore. And it's so, how boring. And this sort of like, listen, here he goes again. Same old stuff, Mr. Ego. And yet, when my clients use the Brilliant Smile solution, it helps them to rediscover their why. But not only help them to rediscover their why, but do it in such a way where they're establishing their true values. They find their why. Start doing what they love. Do what they love, either within their organisation, they may transform within, or they may transform and create their own business and do what they love. And quite often, and I think we was talking about this last night, female senior leaders, corporates, end up going, do you know what? I'm not putting up with this old rubbish anymore. I'm going to go and create my own business, which is why there's actually more female entrepreneurs now than there's ever been, because they're realising they don't have to have that corporate life. Their values and their beliefs become aligned. And everything starts to balance out on a personal and a professional level because they're doing what they love rather than just merely existing. And they have that freedom that goes with it because they feel put my teeth back in again. They feel fulfilled and successful. Right, before I go any further, have you got anything that reflection that you want to say before I go any further? Any thoughts?
Very logical system. You can see how it stacks. It's a very logical system and you can see how it stacks. So somebody by the end of it can have those steps to rediscover their why and get that clarity to go towards what they really want to go towards.
Okay.
I think what really...
Okay. Thank you. I think what struck that picture is resonating with me, and the point you made, which I think is so important, is you can get quite what you've done. You've got a really good system, and as I say, it stacks up and goes well. But what you've understood and have there is that how you see the world, and looking at something like that picture is going to give you such a lot of information about how to help that particular client, particularly if you say there is no right or wrong answer. No one's going to, it's just about how does it resonate with you. So as people working, in this area or on yourself, don't go in with any preconceptions. You've got an idea of what it's for you, but be totally open and not thrown by, in fact, empowered by it being different for others.
Yeah.
That was quite strong for me.
Thank you. Okay, all right. Okay, so what I'm going to be focusing on at the moment is the actual stress-free risk resolution and what that's about. I will be doing some exercises in a moment just to have a bit of a break in it, but I'll just go through that first of all. So the stress-free risk resolution, there's actually 4 key steps within it. And the one that we're actually going to focus off, and it is actually in the book, so anybody, even online, if they're able to download it, then they can see that. And the one that we're going to be focusing on right now is recognition. And with recognition, the key thing about it is being able to understand and recognise your key drivers for stress. And as you just mentioned, is that every single individual is different. And every single type of stress that you have are for different reasons. And sometimes it can be at a low level, sometimes can be sort of almost DEFCON 10, or 9, I should say. And, you know, be for different reasons. And what bothers you, I must say, that lady was talking about with birds, she saw that image, that took her stress level straight through the roof. Now, for me, it was just like, that's crazy. Who would be scared of something like that? But, you know, you cannot make assumptions about individuals. So the important part about recognition is being able to recognise your drivers and start understanding your patterns. Because the problem I see is that many people don't recognise what their key drivers for stress are. And over time, it starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger and out of control. And that's the problem when it does go out of control. It then hits you so badly that you can't get out of it. And as you've already seen with my situation, that when I was made redundant, I mean, in the face of it, when I first thought it happened, I thought it was the redundancy that caused me the mental health issues. And the reality is, it was not that. That was a catalyst. That was like the final nail in the coffin, so to speak. But it was because I wasn't aware of it, and it had been sort of building up over time. And I'm sure my husband will probably say, yep, we saw it, we just wasn't able to do anything about it. And of course, the thing is that you keep on soldiering on regardless. And as you showed yesterday, that's why I was laughing when you was doing some of these images. I was like, it's almost like we're talking the same language, which is great, because you think that you're superhuman. And when you think you're superhuman, then you don't want to be seen as the person that's weak. And when you're at work, you know, you're worried about what other people, and you end up being tired and stressed and anxious and worn out. You can't perform. You're fearing the judgment of others. You know, when you are stressed, you don't want to admit that you're stressed because people will think that you are weak. People will think that, you know, you're no good. One of the best things my daughter ever did to me, right? So, and Dean knows this. I mean, Dean, unfortunately, he's got back injuries. He's been medically retired for a long time, fibromyalgia. He's got loads of illnesses, blesses. And my daughter's got fibromyalgia and various other things as well. And I used to work and travelled all of the time. And I'd come home on Thursday night or things like that. And because I didn't want to go into the house and take in my crap, because they've got their own crap that they're dealing with, I used to sit in the car and I'd have a good cry in the car. And then I'd come in, like I said earlier, got the mask on, nothing to see, hiya, everything's fine and dandy and all of that jazz. And the reality was I was really struggling inside, but I didn't want to offload on them. And my daughter, she does massages. And she was doing a massage for me one day and I started sobbing. And she turned around and said, like, what's wrong? So I started telling her what's wrong. And she said, why don't you tell us this? Do you not realise that you're actually preventing us from being able to help you because you won't let us in? And just because we are dealing with the stuff we're doing, you need support. And she said, you're actually taking away our opportunity to help you because you won't let us help you. Now I'd ask the question, do you let other people in when you're having problems, do you say to your wife, do you know what? I'd really need a bit of a lift here. I'm actually struggling. Like we was talking about, Angela, being vulnerable. The difference it makes to be vulnerable. Give somebody else the opportunity because you're taking away that power from them. I mean, it made me cry again, I have to say, because I felt so awful that I hasn't let my daughter in, let my husband in. Is that something you can relate to? Yes or no?
Yep.
So, anybody online, has they got any thoughts on that?
Yes, well, Philippe was just saying that, let me just, oh, sorry. Thank you. Philippe was just saying that partly that you've been showing him a clear system to fight the voice that's preventing him from, well, not him from thriving, but generally people from thriving, that voice that they're sort of fighting against, that you're giving them space to actually get away from that.
Okay. Now, the problem I see with many females, executive leaders, entrepreneurs, and I know even in the environment that you worked in, by heck, so, is that when you are fearing what other people think of you, that imposter in the room, you know, one of the things is that you start volunteering for everything. You want to prove yourself. I think I don't know if it was with yourself, I was talking about the fact that, you know, when you're actually in an environment, I was in a team of 12 men. It was very successful. I was in a team of 12 men. It gives you an indication of the company I was working in. 1 woman, 12 men. And because of it, I felt that I had to prove myself all the time and make sure that I stood out, and I'd been seen, which is ridiculous because I've been promoted all the way through the company. They wouldn't have promoted me through the company if they didn't think I was any good. But your little brain is telling you, so that's where I used to sort of like step out of my comfort zone. And I'd volunteer it. And all the guys are doing exactly that. Don't worry. Keely's going to volunteer in a minute. So what I'm doing is taking on more and more and more work because I feel that I've actually got to prove myself to the other people in the room, which was then increasing my stress levels. And then one of the things that used to happen, which used to be through the roof, blow through the roof used to. So I sit in a room, the 12 guys, and I say, I've got this fantastic idea, brilliant idea. You know, we can do this, we can do that, and all those kind of things. Nothing. And then I'd explain it in another way. And I'd go, right, well, maybe we can do it, you know, if we do it like this, we can do it like that. Same old thing, but worded in a different way. I'd write it on the board just in case someone is a visual person. And I'd explain it another way. Nothing. And old Paul next to me, he'd go, do you know what? I've got this really great idea. And almost word for word, he'd repeat what I said. And I'd be like, are you kidding me? And because this happened over and over again, I used to get so frustrated. And of course, what did they see? Oh, there she is, emotional Keely. Losing her again, you know, blah, 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 and all those kind of things. So I came across as this frustrated, disconnected person, you know, that's, you know, not getting the results that she wants. Which obviously doesn't show, I'm not showing up as a good leader. I'm reacting. And I think someone spoke about it yesterday, is that, you know, the difference between reacting versus responding, which I'll go into a bit more in a moment. But the problem is that because I came across as emotional, then it's going to impact me being as a leader and going to impact my performance within the organisation. Now, someone taught me something that was really great. And this goes back to this, responding rather than reacting. And she said, you know what, the best thing that you could do, and I wish I'd learnt it 20 years ago. She said, you know what you could do? She says, do you know what, Paul? That's a fantastic way that you managed to explain what I've been saying for 30 minutes. And in that way, you're stroking Paul's ego, and he's going, it's brilliant. And at the same time, you're also saying, that was actually my idea. But you're doing it, you're coming across in a way that's you're responding in a controlled manner rather than being in a manner that's not very pleasant or emotional. So, and the good thing with that, it means that you don't have to volunteer for lots of things. So the next time you are in that situation where, you know, you've got to volunteer for stuff, is like, actually wait until the person that's in the room who's actually skilled at that job, and allow them the opportunity to say, well, actually, I can do that. So when you do actually say, I'm going to do the job, they know that you're the skilled person for it. And the good thing about that, let him do it rather than you. So do you know how difficult it was to find a man raising a hand? But the thing is, it means that your checklist of things to do is not a massive long list of tasks and activities. So it means that you can start checking things off, feeling like you've achieved some result. So then you do have more time with your family and your friends to do the things, and you start relaxing. And that's the important thing, is that when you start recognising some of your behaviour, in this situation, I'd started tracking my behaviours, some of the things that I was doing. I know, for instance, my son can trigger me like a litmus paper, and Dean knows this and he'll laugh about it with it. But honestly, he doesn't do it intentionally, but he does it, and I'm going, why am I even responding to this? so, and then when you do it, you're like, but when you start monitoring and tracking yourself, then that then helps you to be able to manage things in a better way. Before I continue, so have we got any thoughts? Anything that's in the...
Yeah, we've got Claudia saying that you definitely need to play to your strength and delegate your weakness. You don't have to do everything. And then she's just added in, even at home, you know, we can think about the workplace, but actually should be our whole way of life, shouldn't it?
Definitely, 100%. In fact, I read a brilliant article by someone the other day, and this is exactly it. So whenever she went away, she'd organise everything. She'd make sure that there was food left for the husband and the son, and that everything was organised. You know, she'd have all this list of things. Oh, this is here, this is that, and so it basically, you know, fed them completely while she was away and organised their lives. But there was one day she had to go away without any time, short notice, packed her case, run. So they had no food organised, nothing had been cooked, the housework hadn't been cleaned or anything like that, nothing had been done. And she realised that she didn't have to do all of that. They're quite capable of doing things on their own. But when you keep on helicopter parenting or helicopter husbanding, and you're doing everything for them, making this assumption that they are actually not capable of doing it themselves, all you're doing is putting more and more stress on yourself. And the reality is that you can actually take a step back and say, well, actually, Paul, you're quite capable of doing that yourself. You know those hands? You know, they've got them. They've got them as well as us. You know, stop disempowering other people, but also allowing them to make mistakes, because you know what? They'll survive, they'll live. And that's exactly what Claudia's saying. And she said it was such a wake-up call, and she said it was such a relief, because she got so stressed and anxious before she went away because of the panic, and then worried whilst I was away. When you know what? When she come back, they were still alive. Fantastic. So before I go any further, I'm just going to give a bit of an introduction. So in September, I've actually got a 3-day retreat that's taking place. I will be talking about it a bit more in future, but with the 3-day retreat, my Elite Recuperation Initiator, that does also include a 12-week online program as well, and also weekly coaching sessions. I'll go into it a bit more detail in a while, but I just love this picture so much, but I just wanted to invite you in to see that there is that opportunity in September if you wanted to have some self-love yourself, self-care. So, with the recognition stage, in order to actually help my clients, is by using the relaxing roadmaps. And the first step, which we're going to be talking about now, in some of the links that I'll be sharing later, one of the things that I ask my clients to do is actually to start monitoring themselves, their stress levels over a period of time. Now, again, going back to this, don't make assumptions about people, about what they can do, because when they thought the idea that they had to each day sort of write down what it was they was doing. I think I've actually got an example. Yeah. So with this was just a guide of what they needed to do. So each day is like, how have you been feeling? What's caused you to feel that way? And then along with that is a scale of 1 to 10 of where you are. Now in the morning you might be 1 because you're actually getting up, you've had a good sleep, you feel really great and all those kind of things. But then there's certain events that happen during the day and then it builds up over time. Well, Sunday night, wait for Monday morning, it might be a 10 because you're getting anxious about what's happening Monday morning. So one of the things that you need to make sure is that when you're actually saying the monitoring, you don't have to write this down. For some people, the idea of actually writing something down and keeping tracking it means it stresses them out to actually write it down. He's laughing in the background. So you can't make assumptions that that's okay for someone. So it's more of that mental sort of reflection. So each day is like, okay, then, this happened during the day that caused me to feel this way. It caused me to feel a bit stressed. So just for the moment, I'd just like you just to think about this for a moment. Is that perhaps, is there certain days of the week or certain people that you're with that might cause you to feel a little bit stressed, or situations? So, he's smiling there. So are you prepared to share?
Yeah, I can.
Right, okay, give me the microphone.
Yeah, the person that I get stressed about whenever I come in contact with them as well is my future daughter-in-law, who is a little bit of a narcissist, I would say. Very, very hard to actually relate to, very, very hard to talk to. And when you do talk to, you never get any sort of like eye contact or anything like that. And I come away and I just think, this is such a shame, but it also stresses me up because it's affecting my relationship and Linda's relationship as well, my wife's relationship with our grandson, who's 2, who we don't see enough because of the behaviour of her. And also as well, I feel stressed as well because I keep feeling for the, what's happening with regard to my son as well. And obviously we love him loads, but he's living with her on a day-to-day basis. He doesn't see what's actually happening, and that causes me stress, definitely.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing.
That's right.
Thank you for sharing. And that's the thing, is that, when you identify all of these different situations, now as you just described, and we'll go into a bit detail in a moment, is that unfortunately reality is that we can't change other people. We might be able to tell them how they make us feel, but we can't change others. We can't change the external factors. The only thing that we can start changing is the response to those situations. So it's about sort of writing down those specific situations, trying to understand where it comes from, but trying to consider the things that you could perhaps do differently to manage it, so you can then try and find a way so you're still being able to see your son in a way and enjoying those moments that you're with him and your grandson, your grandson, and being able to enjoy those moments and being able to improve the relationship that you've got with the daughter-in-law as much as you can in the situations. And that's the thing, is when you are acknowledging, creating the awareness, then you can start doing something about it. When you're not aware of it, and then you're perhaps walking into that situation, you're already frustrated, and I bet she does this, and I bet she does that. So you're already building up that story. I think it was Lara was talking about, is that you're creating a story in your head, and the story then actually becomes reality because you've created that story. So you've made it even worse than it possibly could have been, rather than actually finding a space where you can try and find the compassion to understand where that's come from, because there must be reasons that's driving for it, and then trying to find a way that you can perhaps centre yourself, be more controlled and respond to it in a much better way. So I'll just go, but the interesting thing was, as I say, is that don't make assumptions. When you ask people to make notes about it, it could actually make them stressed doing that. So, or these apps where they say, oh, I've done this at a certain time, and it's like, well, actually that could make them even more stressed. So anyway, So, and this is where I was coming from this. Has anybody heard of the NLP communication model? Obviously, I know you have, Dean, because this is from you. Have you? Yeah, yeah. So, anybody online, are they familiar with that?
I shall just ask them.
Now, the thing is as I just mentioned, we have external events that come in. Could be the war, COVID, people, individuals, events, all those kind of things. You go into an event, even like this, standing here, for some people, like take their stress levels through the roof. Now they happen. Now they're external factors. There's nothing we can do about them. As we mentioned, you can't change the individual. And the thing is, as over time, the language that someone uses, you know, the decisions that you make, the memories that you have, be triggers, or your values or beliefs, the attitudes that people have around you that have actually formed your attitudes. When an event happens, we delete it, we distort it, we generalise. Oh, he always does that, she always does that. And if they didn't do that, then this wouldn't happen. And it only happened because of them. Or the other thing, and I think it was the one that you know, with the door handle, I get electric shocks quite a lot when I touch door handles and all those kind of things. Static, you see, the energy that I create. So, I like to say it's my warm personality. But whenever, you know, if you go to a door and you've had an electric shock, have you had a situation like that? Yeah? Yeah. So, and you touch the door handle, you get electric shock and you go, oh, and you come back, you take a step back. So the next time you go to that door, that you're a little bit more liberal about the way you actually touch it. And then, of course, if you get an electric shock again and you come back, then you think that every single time I touch a door handle, I'm going to get an electric shock. Well, the reality is you're not on every single door, unless you're pretty unlucky. So it's rather like someone telling me, I'm never going to get hit by lightning, although there's been a person that's been hit by about 3 times, haven't they? I mean, how unfortunate is that? So to say. But that's the thing, is that we generalise with things, or we filter it, or we just throw it out and don't listen. And the problem is that then will impact our internal representation of it, because we delete what it is, or we generalise it, we filter it, which will then, of course, have an impact on our state. And of course, as you say, you potentially may be going into the daughter and you might find your shoulders are coming up because you're getting really sort of all tight and anxious. You're feeling your anxiety levels going up. You're preempting something that may not happen, but when it does happen, then you're even more frustrated because they've done exactly what you bloody thought that they're going to do in the first place. And then along with that, obviously the physiology that goes with it, which will then impact your behaviour. Yeah, the lovely Sammy Engelby. She was the lady I was talking about earlier. She used to work a 70-hour week. The reason why she worked a 70-hour week is that, and we was talking about yesterday, is this: if you're familiar with the phrase secondary gain. So secondary gain is where you're doing something to hide from another problem. So you might be drinking loads of alcohol, eating loads of chocolate, binging, or the other one is that people don't want to be seen, and by not wanting to be seen they might eat loads and loads of junk food, and then they put on loads and loads of weight, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And of course, what do people do when someone has put on loads of weight? They're judging and staring at them, so they've actually opened up the door of what the problem is in the first place, where they don't want to be looked at. And it's all because they're not understanding what's actually gone in the first place. So the secondary gain is, you know, when there is a problem, you're trying to avoid it, you're trying to hide from it. And when you actually understand what that is, then you're able to do for it. She used to shoot from the hip. Right, raise your hand if you've ever received an email and you've gone, you total, or whatever in your head, and you've gone, not having that, and you've responded back straight away with an email, shot through the hip, and then sort of perhaps said something in a way that you shouldn't do. So raise your hand if... yeah, indeed. And she used to do that. And she'd have a driver that would come in each day, do a delivery, and it was during a meeting she'd told the supplier, don't come into this time during this time. Every single day he used to turn up at the same time. And she'd send an email to the supplier, bloody driver comes out every day, it's in my meeting, yada, yada, yada. And because she was doing that, it was then affecting the relationship with, she was getting anxious, the driver was getting told off, or let's just say she wasn't greeting him with a very nice smile. And then, of course, the supplier was then getting a snot mail. And she'd get angry and frustrated. Now, when she started to monitoring her behaviour, then she realised that she was doing this, and she went, actually, I can do this in a much better way. She went and had a conversation with the driver. All this time this has been going on, she went to the driver and said, do you know, every single time you deliver that at 4:30, it's affecting my meeting. I've got to come out of that meeting. He went, oh, I didn't know that. He said, if you'd have told me, I would have been able to come in at a certain time. And he came in at another time. So it meant he was happy, she was happy, so was the supplier. All because she changed the way that she actually responded to a situation rather than reacting. And that's why it's so important for you to start monitoring your patterns of behaviour. Start recognising what's driving that behaviour, so you can then put in strategies to be able to change it. And as I say, if anybody's actually heard it, your emotional monkey kicks in. When the email comes in, oh, not having that. When you get that emotional monkey kicking in, you're reacting and not in a controlled manner. And then you're not showing up as a leader. Or even in your family, they go, Christ almighty, look at her, she's nag. Have a right old nag again. So, breathe, relax, take time, step back. I always used to say to my team member, write the email, delete the names, do your little frustration, then go off, come back, sit down and rewrite the email how it should be done. And you do it in a much calmer space, and then it's more controlled. And also go from compassion, because they might not understand you. They might have read your email, your one that you did first of all, and they've responded to it and gone, oh, a bloody email that Keely's just written. It's not very nice. Or phone them up. Another great thing, the phone, what a wonderful invention. Have a conversation, listen to someone's voice because they understand you more. But the important thing is take time back, because you know the old saying? Can't see the wood for the trees. And yet when you take a step back, you see a beautiful forest. And it's coming from a much better space, and the sun's shining with it. And then it means that you're coming from a logical space rather than the emotional monkey. So you can put your emotional monkey in check. And then you choose the right path. So, before I go any further, because I am actually going to do the little exercise in a moment. So, the reflection. Any question? What time? Time out?
Well, almost.
Almost? Oh, Christ. That went really good. We didn't even have an exercise. So, didn't time fly when you're going through it? I've bored everybody to tears for the last hour then. So, any questions?
Do you have any questions? I'm ready to jump.
No? No? Any in the chat?
More sort of reflections, really, that sometimes with people, Claudia's analytical brain tells me shoe soles, actually. I'm not quite sure. So yes, reactions lead to frustration, procrastination and demotivation. So like you're saying, take that time to step aside and...
Yeah, okay. Oh, in that case then, I'm really sorry. I've just whittled on for an hour. It's just taken much longer, so hopefully it's useful. So anyway, the Elite Recuperation Initiator, the all-inclusive 3-day retreat. It will be masterclasses and workshops. There will be yoga, and there'll be breakout sessions, so you can then do the questionnaires and the quizzes and learn about yourselves and understand yourselves. And more importantly is also having some meditation that will come through it. And all the food is included in it as well. It's in the beautiful location of Bedfordshire. It's got a nice swimming pool, yoga room, great grounds. And the good thing is no one else is there other than us, so it's just us that are enjoying the experience, so, which is lovely too. Also includes the online training program. And the online training program is all recorded videos, so you can do it step by step at your own pace. And then, of course, we have weekly Zoom calls. So it means that when people are going through their training stuff, they have Q&A sessions to discuss it on a much deeper level. And then, at the moment, for our May weekend and throughout June, I'm doing an 80% offer. My usual price for this program, for the entire program, is 6,250. And at the moment, I've got a special price offer of 1,300, and it's a one-time fee or 3 instalments of £500. And I'll say if people would like to sign up for that, here's the scan or the barcode to register. So if anybody would like to do that, or come catch you later. And then if you want to talk about on a much deeper level, then we've got the recuperation initiator course. So we're going to have a strategy course that we can talk to about on a deeper level. And I was going to do the exercise, but apparently we haven't got time, because time flies.
Let's take a picture of the colour. Just leave it up for a second.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, I mean, for those that are online, because I don't know whether you can see it, the exercise that I was actually going to do with you guys was to get you to start writing down some of the common causes for stress and some of the drivers to understand it. And that could be whether it's work, your relationships, finances, health. And then, of course, try to sort of sort them in categories, because when you start sorting, you can see where they're driving from and where they're group, you know, from that particular audience. You might find it's more relationships, and some of it might be more in work. And when you start seeing those themes and patterns, then you can start seeing where you need to focus your time on and where you need to concentrate. Okay, so unfortunately we didn't get a chance to actually do that. I have also shared with all of you this quiz, and I'd like you to do it on your own to take time out, because one of the most common things that I'm finding is people pleasing is one of the biggest drivers for stress. And that's quite often, you know, stimulating the thoughts that you turn around and said about imposter syndrome and all those kinds of things. So when you take this quiz, it'll also try to help you to establish where you are at this moment in time and whether you relate to any of these patterns of behaviour. Because then you can then start looking at, maybe I need to look at some of the things I'm doing, that I am actually that people pleaser. And there are ways that you can actually move forwards and change that. So I'd invite all of you to take the quiz, see where you are, even those that are online, and take the opportunity to, you know, create some awareness of yourself. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.